in our classroom, we're worried about those big problems that can happen. But if we take care of the small things consistently, then a lot of times those big problems will start to kind of slowly go away. And let me give you two examples of things I do in my classroom that demonstrate this idea. Now I have these desks in my class, and they actually are made for to be marked on. They're one of these newer kind of desks. And the problem is, just by moving the book around, it sometimes leaves marks on the desk. And so I constantly have this issue of the desk being marked up, not necessarily from students, but just from the books and wear and tear and so forth. And what I notice is that if I'm not on top of this, not only does it leave those marks from the books and everything else, the students actually start to make marks on the desk. So what I put in place to take care of the small things is the following. At the end of each period, I'll kind of walk around the room real quickly, and if I notice there's any kind of real big marks on it, drawings or something else some students did, I can make them clean up right then and there. That way, when the next class comes in, they're coming into desks that are pretty clean. And then I kind of do that each period. Once you're going to have like a total of 5 periods, keep doing that each period. Then at the end of the day, I'll just kind of take one last look just to make sure everything is good. And then once a week, I kind of do a more deep clean where I actually get to spray out and spray all the desks down. What I notice is by taking care of the small things, by taking care of the small little markings on the desk, the small little drawings on the desk, overall, students are more respectful of the desk and the property in the class. So if I start with the small thing of cleaning the desk regularly, it evolves into something greater, which is a cleaner classroom in general. And here's another thing I do in my class in which I take care of the small problems so they don't turn into the big problems, is I have assigned seating in my class, and students are supposed to remain in the seats unless they raise their hand to get out of the seat, or unless it's someone I can trust and they can kind of get out of the seat to take care of whatever they need to take care of. But even when they get out of the seats, I'm constantly watching them, make sure they're not messing around. Because if I don't do that, if I allow students to get up whenever they want to, inevitably they're going to pass another student, and inevitably they're going to poke them or touch them or something else, the next thing you know, just one small thing of them getting out of the seat now kind of evolved into something a little greater of that, which is now two students kind of fighting each other, two students mad at each other, yelling at each other, or something that goes back and forth, throwing paper, and it can just easily escalate and grow from there. So in order to stop those big issues of students fighting in class, students arguing in class, students throwing paper in the class, bigger things like that, I make sure I take care of that by making sure all students are in their assigned seat and only get up with me knowing about it. So once again, start with the small problem, and then hopefully I take care of the big problem. No, not all the problems are going to be taken care of. You're still going to have stuff because it's school and we're teachers. But if you put a lot of these little things in place, you'll see that the bigger problems start to go away, or at least don't happen quite as much. Now, I call this the broken window idea, and actually I got this from a book that a mayor wrote. And the mayor talked about how when he became mayor of a city, he noticed there's a lot of crime in the city. And when he actually surveyed the whole city, he realized that a lot of places where the crimes were happening near buildings that were kind of torn down, or buildings that were not occupied, and broken windows and graffiti. So he made it a policy. He still has other things put in place, but he made it a policy of actually fixing all the broken windows. Now you think, broken windows, how's it going to stop crime? And it didn't stop crime altogether, but what it did is, by fixing the broken windows, that deterred more crime from happening there. So he started with the small thing. Anytime somebody broke a window, he fixed it right away. And so the idea is, by taking care of the small things and fixing the windows, that snowballed into something greater, where eventually that snowballed into the building kind of being, graffiti be taken down. Then that snowballed eventually into people actually moving back into those spaces. And that snowballed into a better and safer city in general. Real vague concept, but the idea is you take care of the small things, that the big things will hopefully take care of themselves. So think how this concept could play out in your class. Maybe the problem you have in your class and is driving you crazy is when students come into class, they're talking, chatty, and it takes them forever to get on task. So break that problem down to a small element. There's one thing you can focus on now that'll basically help the class get focused. So for me, Chatty Classroom, one thing I came up with is I have the warm-up, I train them ready to go on the board, and I have a timer going right away. And also at some point in time, sometimes I actually had a noise sensor as well. So Chatty class, how can you break it down to the smallest element? What can you fix? What broken window can you take care of? Have a timer up. Boom. That alone makes a difference, a sense of urgency. If students are routinely trying to get out of your classroom, break that down. What's a small thing that you can take care of that's going to deter that from happening? In my class, how I solve that issue is I keep track of students going to the restroom. I tell them you only get 3 passes. That is it. Anything above that would be a detention. And so what happens, I put that small little thing in place, that small little rule, you only get 3 passes, and I keep track of it, that deters them from going to the bathroom or nurse or something. Bottom line, just trying to get out of your classroom on a routine basis. So how do you solve that big problem? Break it down to a small element and focus on that. So look at your classroom and think, what is some big issue I need to take care of? What's this one thing that is just driving me crazy in my class? And see if you can brainstorm, see if you come up breaking that down into a small little part that you can focus on for the next week or 2. And I promise you, if you do that, you're going to see, once again, the problems are going to go away completely, but you're going to see less of that problem than you have before. If you want more tips and tricks of the trade, click on one of the links above here, and I'll see you in the next video.